Hey everyone, surprise podcast from the Shifty Keys, or two of us at least. We're calling it our private
Yay.
cast. Jim Survak and the lady of the Shifty Keys,
Mugs of tea, it's Vic. Hi, everyone.
Vic and Jim. As it always should be, the two biggest Star Wars geeks are, of course, going to nerd out on you a little bit, and we are going to do a little geek talk about Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, our impressions, our likes, our dislikes. And it's going to be spoiler filled, so if you don't like spoilers, get the fuck out. And
CFO bros.
right, so I mean, that's pretty much all this is about. And since we haven't had a chance to talk to each other, we wanted to talk to each other, and we wanted to include our community with it. So, I guess we'll just jump right into it here. The thing that really struck me was like Han's death, man. Han passing on us.
Han's death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was rough. Both times
Boy.
I saw it, because I ended up, since our last podcast, or the spoiler cast, I saw it again with my parents, and it hit just as hard the second time, because it was like, oh my god, it actually did happen, you know?
Right. I'm with you. The moment for me was like when he looks and he sees Kylo Ren walking across that catwalk, and he puts on his blaster, he puts it up, and he walks over to the start of the little bridge there. I was like, oh fuck. I was like, he's not coming back from that bridge. Like,
No.
Han Solo's not walking off of it. You know? And and I was like, there's part of me that was like, yeah, he is. It's Han motherfucking Solo. He's got this. No big deal. And the thing that sealed the deal is when the light from the sun, when the Star Killer was sucking up the sun, everything just goes dark, and it's just Kylo Ren's face in red. And in my head, I went, the dark side. And I was like, oh no! And then he stabbed him. So it was, oh man.
He stabbed him.
Yeah.
That was rough. I think for me, like, I've been thinking, like, that's one of the big things I've been thinking about. That and probably one other thing we'll get to later, but Han's death was something I've been thinking about. And I actually, just earlier today, I was flipping through interviews with the cast, and I came across one with Harrison Ford, and he was talking about how in the 6th movie he tried to convince George Lucas to kill off Han Solo. And the way he talked about it is he wanted Han Solo to die. He wanted Han Solo to sacrifice himself. So he wanted Han's death to mean something to the story. Like, he didn't want it to be just like an accident or anything. And he felt that Han had served his purpose, and he wanted Han to sacrifice himself for the betterment of the story type thing. And it really actually made me feel a lot better about Han's death, because I feel like now, well, granted, we're going to have to wait for the next 2 films to come out and see where they kind of go with the death, because I don't think it's going to just end with this movie. It's going to be a theme throughout. But I'm interested to see, like, I think it made me happy that it feels like Harrison Ford's wishes were granted with that death. His death wasn't in vain. It wasn't an accident. Like, it's serving he sacrificed himself.
Sure, he didn't get eaten by a Rathtar.
Yeah,
right.
He tried to bring. It wasn't like a Boba Fett death.
Yeah,
I'm
with you.
It was he sacrificed himself because Leia asked him to bring his son home, and he tried.
Well, there's the purpose for the story that it seals the deal that Kylo Ren is Ben Solo is dead, and Kylo Ren is all there is. It's kind of like the same steps that his grandfather Anakin Skywalker went through. I mean, it was tough. It was really tough for Sparks. She ended up no kidding. That happened, and she literally cried the last 15 or 20 minutes of the movie. She didn't even watch the end of the movie. She just buried her head on my shoulder and cried. It was just oh man. So she didn't even see the end of the movie until we saw it again the next night. So it was she was I'm gonna pay attention this time. But it was tough, man. It was just God, it's one of those really just, it was a nuts thing, and I didn't really think about it till later. The end of Return of the Jedi is the last time we see the Holy Trinity of Star Wars, which is Han, Luke, and Leia.
Yeah.
Like that's it, no more.
When the movie ended, and it was Rey and Luke on that island. I leaned over to because I suddenly realized I leaned over to Alex and I was like, you know what makes this even worse is that Luke never to see Han again. From what we know, there was never any conversation after Ben turned to the dark side. They ever get to hash it out or talk about what happened to Ben or like was there any forgiveness? Like I'm really curious about how that relationship ended and it just makes it really sad that they never got that opportunity.
Right. I
Make
think.
it hurts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's going to be one of those things that's explained in like the expanded universe, the new canon, and that's gonna be like a side story kind of thing. I
I wish
think.
it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, they were gonna have to maybe we get that in the Han Solo anthology, in a couple of years. Um,
Oh yeah, that's true.
we can hope for that. To me, and this might sound kind of crappy, but to me, this like explains why Harrison Ford was so excited about like this episode 7, and he did all the interviews, and he was like the front runner for the movie in so many things, like with Jimmy Kimmel and all that jazz. So because he's like, oh, I don't have to do this anymore. Like this is it. Like Han Solo dies, and I'm done with the Star Wars crap.
Yeah,
Because
that's
he's kind of there's been a part of him that's really not liked the legacy of Star Wars, because to him it was just like kind of like a one-off trilogy, and maybe some other bad stuff happened over the years. I don't know, but he never seemed to love his character. Like seeing a recent interview with Mark Hamill for the Star Citizen game, when he talks about his excitement and his love for Star Wars. Like Mark Hamill still loves being Luke Skywalker. And Harrison Ford didn't have that feeling about Han Solo, I felt like. So it's kind of like it was a celebration thing. He's like, oh, hallelujah, I'm done.
and then shocker, he's actually back for 8 and 9.
Right? He's a Force ghost. Plot twist.
It's like totally robot chickens it.
You heard it here first. Han Solo comes back for episodes 8 and 9.
We totally know that's actually gonna happen.
Calling it right now.
Well, I will crack up though if it really does happen.
Oh my god! If they bring Han Solo not being Force sensitive in any way, if they bring him back, that might break Star Wars for me.
Yeah,
That would make no sense. Like this is not Star Trek. You can't be like, oh, cross-dimensional shit. Like that doesn't work for Star Wars. So.
Well, as long as they here's the one thing: they didn't drop a planet on Han and then revive him as a cyborg. So there's that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a true statement.
You're welcome. Welcome, world.
Yeah. Right. Jesus. No, they just threw him into the center of a planet and then blew up the planet. So he's dead. Like he's stabbed. He fell off a bridge and the planet blew up. Han Solo's gone. So.
Yeah. There's no way he's coming back from that.
Right. So. So.
Not even a zombie.
No, there's not even. Can't even zombify it at all.
Nope.
Zombie Solo. Han zombie. No crawling out of the Sarlacc for Han. Anyway, we're done with the death jokes before poor Mr. Solo here. So that brings us into the next big talking point, which is who is Rey?
It's
a little more ambiguous.
Yeah. So fun fact: Daisy Ridley totally knows who Rey's parents are. I kind of want her to spoil it because I want to know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I kind of do too. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I started out on the hardcore Rey is Luke's daughter bandwagon. That's what I was convinced. Seeing the movie, I've seen the movie 4 times, and seeing it the first 3 times, I'm absolutely convinced Rey is Luke's daughter. Seeing it this 4th time, fucking done with that theory. Whole new theory.
What's your theory?
You're gonna hate this. I feel positive you're gonna hate this. Obi-Wan's granddaughter.
Okay, so let's into that because actually that is a theory that because I was gonna ask you when you started was are you in the Kenobi camp or are you in the Skywalker camp for her?
So, I converted. Left Skywalker, came to Kenobi. I got a few reasons for that. So
this is let me go on my thought process about her.
Right.
Because originally I didn't think of her, her lineage. when I first saw the film, so kind of all I saw out of Rey was she was this badass female character who suddenly had very great control over her powers. And I saw it, and so I was like, okay, this is weird. Now, maybe she could be Luke's daughter. Alex and I threw around the theory that she could be Han and Leia's daughter, but that didn't make any sense to me, and I didn't feel comfortable with that theory because I felt like Leia would never consciously leave her, never in a million years would she just abandon her daughter or a kid of hers because that's happened to her once. I don't highly doubt she wants to do that again. I did the second time through. I began thinking. I was like, there's got to be a reason why she has such great control over her powers so quickly, and has such strong powers. So my first thought is that she was actually in the original. She was a young kid when the new temple that Luke was training. So she already had some sort of training under her belt, but doesn't remember it because of how, it can be very emotionally scarring being left behind on a planet by yourself. So she probably doesn't remember it. But in that flashback where it's Kylo Ren and his knights?
Yeah.
So one theory is that she was spared by Kylo, and she was actually there, and she was spared by him because just didn't see her as a threat.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, Alex brought that up. We were chatting about it, and he was
Man, that's changing shit hardcore. Wow.
Maybe she was there. She was at the Jedi Temple, and she was so young at the time, because she was, 5 when they left her on Jakku? So,
Maybe.
4 or 5?
I was about to say, I'm going with 4.
4?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, well, I read the book, too, so...
How old
there's some insight into that. Well, I did the audiobook, but she's like, okay. I think she's 4.
Okay. So she's 4 years old. So she survived, so possibly she could have been, if she was there, Kylo Ren probably just spared her, because what's a 4-year-old gonna do? He probably didn't think of it, and then somebody grabbed her, possibly 2 surviving teachers who were teaching at the school, and they grabbed her and they left her on Jakku to keep her away from Kylo Ren. Because I found it very interesting that suddenly there has been awakening, can you feel it, occurred after she left Jakku. It wasn't even before she realized she had force powers, or
right.
She had control of the force. It happened when she left, and Kylo Ren took great interest in her. Like, oh, we don't need the droid anymore. We'll just take the girl. Oh, right. You're the girl that I've heard so much about you. And Snoke even Snoke's like, the Force has awakened, and it all occurs after she's left Jakku. So that's my theory, is that she's very Force sensitive and she's very strong in the Force, but she was left on Jakku because who the fuck goes to Jakku? Nobody.
Right. Who would do that?
Until they went and got the map.
Right. Exactly. Nobody goes there. Like Tatooine, nobody goes there except for when it's absolutely needed. Desert planets are important in Star Wars.
They are. So in general, though, because I have that theory, I kind of am in the Kenobi camp in the sense that, it makes sense. But I honestly don't know, and part of me wants her not to have a famous lineage.
Right. I can understand that. Because we don't want to, it's like they're trying to... If she has a Kenobi or a Skywalker lineage, then they're, shrinking the Star Wars universe,
Yeah. Well, but... Maybe she's not just a daughter of Skywalker Kenobi. Maybe she's a daughter of another Jedi that survived.
Right.
Or the granddaughter of another Jedi, because we know that not every Jedi was killed during Order 66. There's a huge possibility that they went off and had their own lives. And, didn't do anything. They just kind of went in. There's a possibility that some of them were just okay, planet looks nice, I'm just gonna go live here for the rest of my life, and no one will bother me, and do their own thing. So there could be, she's just daughter of another Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
You never know.
I'm with you. I can
babbled. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I'm with you. But so here's my here's like my initial thought process for Rey being Luke's daughter is that she's very strong in the Force, like more powerful than Kylo Ren because she beats Kylo Ren. Granted, Kylo Ren has been shot with the fuck everything in front of it blaster, Chewie's bowcaster. If you
Yeah.
haven't, I mean, watch what that thing does in this movie. I mean, fuck the Death Star, fuck the Star Killer weapon. Just put that thing on the front of a spaceship and then just proceed to destroy everything. It's gonna fucking ruin you and all your ancestors and your unborn descendants. I mean, it is. That thing is. Han blows up two stormtroopers. Every time somebody gets shot with that thing, they fly back 20 feet. I mean, that's a serious fucking gun. Okay,
Yeah.
Kylo Ren gets shot with it and stays standing up. So that's my like. This is I'm like tangenting a little bit. I'll get back to like the Kylo Ren fight in a minute, but
That's fine.
it's like so like she beats Kylo Ren, and I'm thinking somebody who's untrained in the Force or in lightsaber combat at least, who has very raw Force potential, has to be a Skywalker, has to be a descendant of Anakin, because Anakin was the one conceived by the Force, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thought process, and that it makes sense that Luke would leave her on Jakku because it's the same thing that happened to him. He's protecting her and the galaxy in the same way that he was hidden to protect himself and the galaxy, because he was the future hope for the galaxy. So it's like kind of poetic in its own way. And so I was like, okay, like Rey is Luke's daughter. And the one thing that really like kind of convinced me of that was when I listened to the audiobook for The Force Awakens, the voice actor, the narrator for The Force Awakens, he does a lot of the Star Wars books, and I just listened to him reading Weapon of a Jedi, the little short story. It's like the young adults little story that they did. I'm
No,
gonna see if I can
I'm
find
not
it.
sure.
Yeah, it's one of the little like novellas. It's only like
Because I'm so behind.
it's Star Wars Weapon of a Jedi. It's a Luke Skywalker adventure. It's like a little less than 4 hours. Mark Thompson is the narrator. So this whole book is about Luke. So you hear a lot of Luke's voice. And in the Force Awakens novel, when Rey is left on Jakku, the the person who leaves her says to her, "Stay here, sweetheart. I'll come back for you. I promise." And he says it in Luke's voice, and I'm like, sold. Like, sold. It's Luke Skywalker as the daddy, right? It's a bad
Yeah.
episode of Space Maury here. You are the papa. So, what made me change over to the Kenobi camp was that one of my coworkers says to me, Rey is Obi-Wan's daughter. And I'm like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Because it's 30 years since End of Jedi, and like 35, yeah, like 35 years since Kenobi was last alive, right? So
Yeah, so she'd be really old.
Rey is like 19, maybe 20. Like she's not even drinking here in the U.S. yet. Okay, so there's no way. And I was like, so I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, so how about what if she's Kenobi's granddaughter? And I was with you originally because you said this like a year or so ago, maybe two, where you were when like the first rumors about The Force Awakens comes out, and they're talking about the cast, and they said they were trying to cast someone to be
Oh, yeah.
Obi-Wan's daughter. When the rumors first started coming out, you were like, it breaks Obi-Wan's character. There's no way in hell he's got a daughter. Absolutely not. I refuse. And so I was kind of like, I could see that. I mean, but he's a human, right? Like anybody else. I mean, he's got his
Yeah.
urges too, despite what the Jedi say. And I got to thinking about this, and I'm like, I was like, 20 years. That's a long time alone on a desert planet. you know, he's had to have met somebody. And then somebody mentioned to me the Clone Wars, where there was that Mandalorian princess that they like almost left the Jedi Order for. And I think I remember even
Oh,
you talking about it
yeah.
one time, because you were talking about how much you loved the character and like how he was so dedicated to the Jedi that he even wouldn't leave for her. And I was like, holy shit! Like, what if Obi
What?
Wan and the Mandalorian princess, I forget her name now,
Yeah.
they go have a night on the town. She gets knocked up, has a kid, who later has her own child, and realizes that, hey, you know what? My father was a Jedi. The Jedi were wiped out. I've been in hiding my whole life, but now Luke is building the new Jedi Order. Why don't I give my child to Luke, and Luke can train my child, right?
Yeah.
And then everything goes tits up with Kylo Ren. So, Like I could see that, and there's some things that make some sense as to why that would be. And the number one thing that like kicked it and kind of kicked in the face with it was the accents.
Yes,
Han,
that's one argument that everyone keeps bringing up is that
right?
it's the accents.
Han, Leia, Luke, Kylo Ren, all have American accents. Obi-Wan has an English accent. Rey has an English
Scottish.
accent. Scottish, whatever. Something in the UK. I
Don't
can't
you
tell.
fucking say that to a Scotsman. You're gonna
I
get
don't
your
know.
ass
I don't know how
slapped.
to tell like the difference between the accents in the United Kingdom. Okay, I don't listen to them enough to know the
You
fine
listen to
details.
Tyler all the
But what is
time.
Tyler? Tyler's like he's like one step down from like London posh. Like, come on.
Oh my
I mean, that's all I hear. I hear Tyler, and that's it. You know.
god. Fair. Fair.
So,
Continue.
so that's my thought process. Okay, like the accents thing.
Mm-hmm.
Two, and this might be the more important of them. Obi-Wan talks to Rey.
Yeah.
It's not ambiguous. It is in both. You have both Sir Alec Guinness and you have both Ewan McGregor. Sir Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan says, Rey? And then after that, it's Ewan McGregor and he says, these are the first steps. And it's like, holy shit, like Obi-Wan's talking to Rey. He is telling her the same thing he told Luke. Why would Obi-Wan, 35 years after he's dead, 30 years after he stops appearing to Luke as a Force ghost, appear to this girl and say, these are the first steps?
That's true.
So she is significant, and I'm thinking it's a Kenobi. And what kind of poetic and storytelling symmetry would it be that Kenobi trains Skywalker, Skywalker goes evil, so he trains the Skywalker's son, who ultimately saves the galaxy, but can't save it a second time, so the Skywalker must now train the Kenobi.
You know what? Now that you bring that up, I really like it. Like, I'm convinced too.
Sold!
The hardest part for me to accept is like, I don't know. I see Obi-Wan in his older age being still very dedicated to the Jedi Order, especially after it did essentially get destroyed. So that's like the hardest part for me, one. And two, the also hardest part for me, you brought up the Mandalorian princess, but all I can think about is also too is the relationship that he had with Ciri in the Jedi Apprentice books. And like that was the first time like I mean he's left the I mean granted this is old canon, but he left the order once in the Jedi Apprentice books to join a rebellion on one of the a planet. So he left the order once, he returned to it, but then he actually considered leaving the order again with Ciri, who was a character introduced in the Jedi Apprentice books. I personally loved her. She's still one of those characters that remain very close to me, even though she's probably not even in existence anymore. Like part of me wants to be in that canon line, she dies during the Clone Wars. She's murdered by, I don't remember, I think a bounty hunter kills her or something. It's been forever since I read the book. But she ends up dying, and that's the first time Anakin ever sees Obi-Wan exert any sort of anger or emotion out on somebody else, like acting very out of Jedi ordery.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, part of me is like, okay, maybe they just bring Ciri back, and, like, she can exist and they found each other, and that would be really cool. And it may also too explain why she's also so powerful.
Yeah, I'm thinking though, and this is for if she's Kenobi's daughter, we know that the way Anakin describes Obi-Wan in episode 3 is that Obi-Wan is as wise as Master Yoda and as powerful as Master Windu. So Obi-Wan is like the pinnacle of the Jedi badassery without going into the dark side. So
It very much is.
Yeah, Rey's got that raw talent. In addition, Rey has lived a hand-to-mouth, kill or be killed existence for 15 years at least.
Yeah.
She knows how to fight. She knows how to use that staff like nobody's business. Okay?
Yeah.
Hand-to-hand combat, she's got that figured out. She's just got an innate ability that she has learned through hard fought experience. The thing about it is we can't rely on the whole Siri theory because
I know. This is my
it's
fan
old
fiction
canon.
wanting.
I'm not upset with you. I'm not upset with you about it. You know, I can see how you'd want it to be that way, and I'm okay with it. And so it's the only way that, like, with Kylo Ren being injured and her just having such raw force potential, that
Yeah.
she can beat Kylo Ren, you know. And she does the very Obi-Wan thing when Kylo Ren is down. She doesn't kill him. She doesn't kill Kylo Ren. He is
No, she
down.
doesn't.
He's
But
shot. His leg is broken. His face has a huge scar on it. His shoulder's been cut because Finn sliced him with the lightsaber. Like, she could have just ended it right there. And she hesitated. And she was like, I just don't feel like it's the right thing. And then the Earth, you know, the planet cracks open. So
you
it kind
can
of took her
also
choice away.
you
But
also can see the anger though on her face. Like that is throughout the whole film she's very innocent,
mhm,
very like, "Oh, the reason why I'm like this is because I really have no fucking clue what's going on with the rest of the galaxy because,
right,
there's no CNN Jakku here."
right,
Um
JNN.
but I like that was the first time that in that whole film you saw her essentially go from happy and like optimistic to her actually being angry and almost losing control over that anger. She did hesitate, but she was still very like she still was. You could see it in her eyes. Like this, definitely the second time through when I saw it the second time through, like her eyes were just like,
Yeah.
"Fuck you."
So she's struggling with it, and I think for Ray, and this isn't really described this way in the book, because you get more like exposition and behind the character's thoughts in the books. She's looking at it and she's going, you know, she's probably killed people before as a purely out of survival, but now she's like, he is helpless, and I could kill him now. And what did the Jedi never do? The Jedi never attack a defenseless enemy,
Yep.
right? They never kill a defenseless enemy. That's one of their rules. So I think she subconsciously she struggles with that. And I'm kind of okay with the idea that she was training under Luke, and that maybe Luke left her on Jakku. Jakku, like, she might be Kenobi's granddaughter, but Luke could still be training her, and that he felt his Jedi be killed. He felt Kylo Ren's betrayer, and he felt all the Jedi die at Kylo Ren's hand, and that's when he said, I have to hide her. And Kylo Ren's been looking for her, not really actively because he's been getting his own training from Snoke, but so I think that's something to consider as well.
So can I move away
Yeah,
from
yeah,
Ray?
let's
As much as like I would love to keep talking about Ray, I kind of want to move
yeah,
because
we're gonna belabor it anyway.
we could keep talking about this for God knows how long. Anyway, but what do you think of who do you think Snokes is?
Snoke that's a thing. Okay, he's not the only thing we know, and this is from the book. The only thing we know is that Snoke has been around a very long time. It's not described who he is. He criticizes Kylo Ren. He has an extended conversation with Kylo Ren in the novel where he talks about, I watched the Sith rise, I watched the Republic crumble, I watched the Empire rise, and then at the end, when Vader had to make the decision, it was compassion. It was not a lack of tactics, it was not a lack of firepower, it was not the dark side not being strong enough, it was compassion that ruined your grandfather. And that was the point he's kind of trying to drive home to Kylo Ren, is that Vader made the decision to not kill Luke. And when he did so, that's what caused this whole situation to occur. I think it's, without having any real information, I think it's plausible that he's Darth Plagueis. I know that's the ongoing like big theory. That's the popular theory, and I can see that absolutely working. I'm not upset about that theory at all, and I think it makes sense in the fact that if Plagueis was Darth Sidious' master, and Sidious supposedly kills Plagueis, then Plagueis doesn't immediately re-show himself because he's at a time where his apprentices betrayed him and taken over the mantle of the Sith Lord. But there's also the Jedi are still a factor in the Republic at the time. So, of course, Snoke goes into hiding. So I can see it being Darth Plagueis. It also adds it also kind of puts a new spin on the idea. Oh, and this is my other thought about Rey. It also puts a spin on the idea that when Sidious tells Anakin that there has only been one who has ever mastered the art of immortality, at the end of episode 3, we go, oh, it was Qui-Gon, because Qui-Gon comes back to teach Obi-Wan, right?
Yeah.
What if, in fact, he's talking about Plagueis? Because he knows maybe he didn't really kill his master. Maybe he's not actually dead. Because they also refer to Snoke as being the wise leader. And Sidious calls Plagueis Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Yeah.
So that's an idea there. The other thing, real quick, about Rey, like this will totally like turn the Star Wars lore on its head. Episode 5, Yoda says to Obi-Wan's ghost, "No, there is another. The other being Obi-Wan's granddaughter, not Leia."
Huh.
Anyway, so
Huh.
so now you're really getting sold on the idea. All right, so back to Snoke.
I just find that like that's actually really interesting because everyone assumes it was Leia.
Right.
There
but
is
now
another. But if
we throw Kenobi's kid into the mix.
if Kenobi had if Kenobi ended up having a daughter or a kid or a son, it could have been a son. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
But then you know what I mean.
Right. Kenobi's child isn't important. His grandchild's important potentially.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting. That's very interesting. I'm gonna have to hold on to that one.
All right. That's what I totally brain farted on earlier. So yeah,
that's all right.
I could see Snoke being Plagueis, and here we go with my fanfic theory now for things that aren't canon anymore, but I wish they were.
Right.
Darth Bane. I don't know if you read the Darth Bane books.
No.
Spoiler alert, it's not canon anymore, so I'm just going to ruin this.
It's fine.
Darth Bane, he spends the first 2 books like destroying the old Sith Order, establishing the rule of 2, and taking on his apprentice Xana. And at the end, Xana and him fight just like he intended it to be with the rule of 2, and Xana had already started to pick another apprentice, and at the end of the book, the way it is written, Xana kills Bane, but Bane does kind of an essence transfer, if you will, and takes over Xana's body. So it's not actually Xana, it's Darth Bane. And what if it's just Darth Bane? Like that's the secret to immortality. You just take over another body, and that's what he does for the next 1,000 years. And Darth Bane becomes Darth Plagueis, who later becomes Supreme Leader Snoke. That's my fanfic theory based off of the old non-canon stuff.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is though with the old canon being old and like not official anymore. I mean, Disney can still pull from it, especially for the prequel stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, anything is really, especially anything prequel, anything is really game. Honestly, it's not as going to be hard to argue as the post original trilogy will be, but. Yeah, that whole Snoke's thing, I don't really have any thoughts or opinions on it. The only thing that I picked up on very quickly, when you first see Snoke's for the first time, the only thing I thought was he looked oddly familiar. He looked very much like the artwork on the Darth Plagueis book. So when I saw him when you see him, I was like, oh, he looks like Darth Plagueis, because that's, if you I haven't read the books. I know you have, Jim. I recommended it to you. Yeah, that was the only thing I really thought was like, oh, he really looks like the cover of that book. So that was really the only, because it wasn't something I really dwelled too much into. I was more obsessed with trying to figure Rey out. But that's really the only thought process I've had, like connecting Plagueis and Snoke's together, is that just the how they look.
They kind of, there's a little, the Plagueis novel is no longer canon, unfortunately, but the way it's written, and maybe this is fortunate, the way it's written is that Darth Plagueis was a moon, which might still be canon because that's what George Lucas said in one of the pre-production drafts that he did referencing Darth Plagueis. Is that he was a moon. So he's one of the banking clan guys. Like if you watched episode 2, he's the guy who's like, the banking clan is with you, Count. Like that guy. That's what Darth Plagueis is. And this may be the fact that we only see Snoke as a giant 25-foot hologram. It kind of is reminiscent of Sidious bowing before the giant head of Plagueis on the novel's cover.
Yeah, and
Um,
that was another thing I picked up on too.
yeah,
Also
so
was how it's just that his whole like how Snoke was, you only saw him in that, and how it was just like he was just like, look, I don't know, it just was so very close to that cover that's kind of where I'm sticking to and being like, yeah, that's probably why he's Plagueis, because Disney is referencing that cover so much.
definitely okay with him being Plagueis. I think it would be a nice twist. I think the thing that like got the whole Plagueis theory started was the fact that there was supposedly a leaked photo done, not a photo but like a hand drawn like storyboard picture, and it shows Rey, who we assume is Rey, before she was cast as Daisy Ridley, but a character who has very Rey-like with her hair, holding a blue lightsaber, and up on a cliff. She is facing what is distinctly a moon holding a red lightsaber. So everybody's like, "Oh, it's Darth Plagueis." So that's where that started, and so maybe that's where the story goes in the long run.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm with you. I think I would not be upset if that was Plagueis. I think that would actually be a very good and very interesting twist to it.
I
Because
like
then
it
the
too.
question, and also too with your theory of like, oh, maybe it's not Bane, but you had that whole theory of Bane immortality and just transferring bodies. They could always just pull that and make it, Plagueis. That's how Plagueis figured it out, was
Right.
he just moved from bodies, which would also make sense because if Sidious killed him, quote unquote killed him, but he's immortal and he was a moon in the books and prior in the prequels, it would make sense that maybe he just did transfer bodies, and this time he picked whatever the fuck he picked. I don't even know what
Yeah.
that was. It wasn't human, but
Yeah, I was like, well,
I
if it was human, he was really screwed up.
I'm not sure what alien race it is, but it was not human.
Yeah. Well, and now I got to go back and watch this episode because I just thought about it. Darth Bane appears in a sense in the Clone Wars. It's the last episode of the Clone Wars. It was that sixth season. That's like a half season that was never on air. It was only on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh my
and
god.
Yoda goes to Korriban and he meets the supposed ghost of Darth Bane, who has a very deep voice, kind of similar to Andy Serkis and the way he did the voice for Snoke. Ironically, is voiced by Mark Hamill. Um, and so like maybe not. I'm shying away from the Darth Bane theory because now that we have like a canonical reference for Darth Bane and his ghost is on Korriban, I'm kind of backing away from that idea a bit. So
Yeah.
probably not Darth Bane. Absolutely can be Darth Plagueis. I like the idea of him being more like the idea of him being Darth Plagueis than being somebody else because it brings the prequels back into relevancy. Because there's a lot of people who've like pushed away from the prequels because they don't like it. Like a lot of people didn't like the prequels so much. So
I
I
think that, honestly, I think the prequels, storyline wise, I think the Clone Wars proved that the prequels could be a very, very interesting period of time
right,
and an area where the story is not terrible. The hard part about that story is that we knew what was going to happen at the end.
hmm
Like, I think that's what makes it so difficult to watch the prequels sometimes, because you're just like, fuck, I know
it's
what's
all pointless,
happening. Yeah,
right?
like I know this dude turns into Vader, but I think the Clone Wars, and I think also too in a sense Revenge of the Sith, prove that the prequels could definitely have some relevancy, and I think the fandom and the Star Wars fans in general need to take a step back and actually just look at the films as, they're not perfect. And I mean, the original trilogy also too was nowhere near the greatest films of all time via
No,
storytelling. Like, there were some stupid things in all of those films,
sure,
but to turn around and just write off the prequels because you don't like them, I think the fandom in general needs to just take a step back and be like, okay, I may not like them as a movie per se, but what can they show me about the universe? What can they show me? What can I learn from them? How
right.
can this relate to this next trilogy? And I totally agree with you. I would love it if they could, if Disney or Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy could managed to bring the prequels back into some sort of like, these aren't pointless movies.
Right. And
You know?
I think that, and I heard one criticism, I watched a podcast, and they gave the criticism that, like, one of the reasons the prequels suck is that it's really fun and it's really interesting to hear about the Jedi, but actually see the Jedi in action, it kind of sucks. And I was like, well, you're seeing the Jedi in action at the end of their golden age in the waning years
Yeah.
of the Republic, like when, because the Republic had been, according to Lucas, had been unchallenged for 1,000 years. That's why they didn't have a military. So you have a system that's become stagnant and complacent without challenge and change, and they kind of turn in on themselves, and the Jedi just kind of, they become what they were meant to be, I guess, in a sense. They're just peacekeepers, but that's it. And so they don't have the martial status they were supposed to, you know. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how much they draw from the Old Republic kind of idea, but with the Old Republic, if you look at Knights of the Old Republic and the Old Republic MMO, and if you take the new Sith Wars, which was the final great war between the Jedi and the Sith before the 1,000 years golden age, before the prequels, if you take that as canon, in all of these things, the Jedi were peacekeepers, but they were also augmented the military of the Republic, and so they were always the leading from the front, you know.
Yeah.
And if you have 1,000 years of peace, that all kind of goes away. So I think the Republic looks at history and they say, well, we need the Jedi to lead our army, which is exactly what Sidious wanted. And so the Jedi just do a piss poor job, you know?
Well, and also, but in the prequels, it's also mentioned like, we're peace. You know, I think it's in the third film. I think actually Obi-Wan says this. He turns around and he says, "We're peacekeepers. We're not generals." Or it might be the second movie.
Right.
I
Yeah,
can't
I think it's
remember
the
what
second
film
one.
but I believe it's Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan turns around and says, "Look,
No,
we're
it's
not."
Mace.
Oh, it's
It's
Mace.
Mace
I was
Windu, yeah,
like, it's
because they're in the
Obi-Wan or
council
Mace.
chamber.
I can't remember. But he's like, we're peacekeepers. We aren't generals. We're not built to to lead armies. We're not built to give commands. We're built to be peacekeepers, and that's
Right.
what we are. Because if you think about it, war goes against the code. It goes against the Jedi code. You don't go after people who are, who can't defend themselves. And what do you do in military tactics, You go after the points that, they may not be able to defend themselves. The Jedi give everyone a fighting chance and an opportunity. They talk first and then they go
Right.
to violence if they need to. And I honestly, that criticism you heard on that podcast, kind of like, that's completely the opposite of how I feel. Because
I'm the
honestly,
same way. It's like, I feel like you see like the golden age of the Jedi. You're like,
yeah,
man, like this is how it should have been. Like, this is what Luke should have been born into, right? I
yeah,
mean, he
like,
should have been in this age. He shouldn't have had the struggles that he had, And
well,
I feel so much for Obi-Wan, because Obi-Wan's got to be on Tatooine thinking that for 20 years, just like, man, like, what could we have done different to make
yeah.
to so that we wouldn't be in this situation now?
Well, and to kind of bring that back to perspective, because episode 1 very much did that. This is what it was like to be a Jedi prior to everything going to shit. And I remember I was watched Everything Wrong with episode 1. And one of the things they bitched about was the negotiations. The trade negotiations with I can't believe I forgot.
Trade Federation.
Ha! Trade Feder. Duh.
Right.
The Trade Federation, long day. The Trade Federation, and they have, they're specifically originally sent to Naboo to talk to see if they can convince them not to blockade the system, and that's what they did. That was the Jedi's role in the universe, in the galaxy. It wasn't go be badass 99% of the time and just cut people's heads off and cut people's hands off. It was, you need to go and you need to negotiate. If you read any of the Jedi Apprentice books, that's what they did in the Jedi's Apprentice books. They were peacekeepers. They went and they negotiated. They weren't fighters. That wasn't their main tactic. And also, then you also look at how the system of the Jedi are broken down. There, you have Jedi Knights, Jedi Guardians, you have healers, you have those who are educated, you have the Masters. They're all broken down into a system where it shows that the Jedi are more than just these sword wielding, lightsaber wielding characters. They're way more than that. And I I don't know. I think part of it is that people, when they went into the prequels, they were like, oh, I'm going to see the golden age of the Jedi, which means they're going to be badass and all these awesome lightsaber fights. And while Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon was like the epitome of what the Jedi could do, I think people expected that to be the whole thing. And then
Hmm.
were sorely disappointed when it was like, well, when they try to tell you, like, well, Jedi are more than just
And they
warriors.
and the thing is that like yeah, like we try to because all we have before the prequels, the only thing we have is an idea of who the Jedi are is Obi-Wan and Luke. And Obi-Wan, he's the character who in the bar he chops off the guy's arm, and then later he fights Vader. Like he walks up to Vader with his lightsaber hilt out, like he knows he's gonna fight. He knows he has to fight Vader.
Yeah.
But Obi-Wan's always been that kind of the negotiator character. I mean, Grievous even calls him in Episode 3. He goes, General. He says, General Kenobi, the negotiator. That's how he greets Kenobi in Episode 3. He even though he chopped off that guy's arm in Episode 4, he tries to like bring it down before he slices a dude's arm off. You know.
Yeah.
So that's always kind of like again Obi-Wan being the epitome of what a Jedi is. So yeah, I'm with you, and I think if all the Jedi were like that, that's why I like Mace Windu as a Jedi. That's why I like Luke as a Jedi because they understand that you have to be withdrawn, but in some cases you got to bring the muscle, and they're just a little more willing to bring the muscle than Obi-Wan was, and that's why I like them a little more than I like Obi-Wan. As a production side note, we're talking about lightsaber fights here. This episode 7, the first time in any of the movies where they have in a lighted scene the color of the lightsaber actually glowing on the wielder's face. The only time we ever see that otherwise is in episode 2 where Dooku and Anakin are fighting and Anakin cuts that power cable and it cuts the lights out and we have like the lightsabers passing in front of their faces, so you just have like blue and red like flashes of their faces as they fight.
Yeah.
In episode 7, because like in any other time, like whether it's a well lit scene, you don't see the glow off of the saber on that person's face. Like Qui-Gon has a scene where he holds the lightsaber really close to his face, and it's like, come on, there'd be some green light coming off of the lightsaber, right? There'd be a little
Yeah.
bit, you know. And in
Yeah.
this movie, they did that, and I was just like, finally, at last, like we finally got to the point where either we have enough computer technology to make that a light source within a 3D environment, or somebody went and hand painted that shit in, and if they did, God bless them, because that's a lot of work. so, so
Yeah.
I was really happy with the production value of that. Watching one of the Rooster Teeth podcasts, Gavin said he felt like the lightsaber fight in Force Awakens was more weighty than that of the other movies. Do you feel like that's true, or do you feel like it's not?
Weighty. What does he mean by the word weighty? I'm
Like
confused.
it
Sorry,
felt
I'm not sure what.
I think he meant like it felt more visceral because the way he described it was this fight was like the two, Rey and Kylo Ren and Finn and Kylo Ren were actually like trying to kill each other, while in episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 3 it felt like it was the lightsabers were like very flighty, like there's a lot of like flips and kicks and spins, and to me I think the best example of that is at the end of episode 1, where Obi-Wan goes and fights Maul one-on-one. He is very fast in his movements. They both are. While in this, it was a lot of, it seemed like it was slower, but and that the attacks were like larger. It's almost like they were swinging clubs as opposed to like fencing, if that makes any sense. And I think that's
Okay.
what he means by it.
Okay, because I do have some comments on that. Because
Okay.
going back to what we just finished talking about, which was the prequel, especially Episode 1, was kind of the insight to what the Jedi were, and that's very much it. Like prequels were, these are the height of the Jedi. This was the height of them. This was the height of their athleticism. This was the pinnacle of their talent, of their skills. So of course you would expect to see very flippy, jumpy, fast movements because you are dealing with a group of people who this is what they've been doing for 1,000 years. They've been training, they've been doing this for 1,000 years. Then you have in episode 4, because this fight very much reminded me of was the original Star Wars fights, which they were more focused on the emotion behind the fight than they were the fight themselves. So
Yeah, okay, I'm with you on that.
So, you see episode 4. So when Obi-Wan and Vader go, fight, it's a very slow battle. I mean, granted, you are dealing with two very old, one
Right.
pretty much a robot, and then a very old Jedi. But when do you think the last time Obi-Wan swung a lightsaber? It probably had been 30 some odd years since, or 19 years.
Yeah.
What's 19 years?
Yeah,
It's been
19
19
years.
years. Sorry, 30. It's been 19 years since Obi-Wan, swung a lightsaber or anything, and he's grown into an old man. So in that fight, they had to be a lot more. Every swing of the lightsaber had to mean something. And, Obi-Wan knew he could never beat Vader, so that's why he just kind of let Vader win.
Hmm.
Strike me down, and I'll be more powerful than you can ever imagine.
Right.
And then but then you have episode 5 and 6, where Luke is essentially a self-trained, swordsman. I don't know how much information or how much tips, I guess, these are not the words I want, but I'm gonna have to do, but how much
What was he able to learn from like what he found in Obi-Wan's hut on Tatooine?
not only Obi-Wan's hut, but Yoda. Like, Yoda's 900 years old, and
Mm-hmm.
he was obviously a badass swordsman, but he can't teach Luke how to do that stuff, and he's 900 years old. So
Right.
I think what it was is you go from the Jedi you go from the pinnacle of the Jedi, which was episodes 1, 2, and 3, where you saw them at their pinnacle and at peak. 4 was at the bottom again, and then 5, 6, while the fighting styles got a little bit better. The thing is that in the prequels, sometimes the fights were just there to be there. Like Grievous versus Obi-Wan, that didn't need to be a 12-minute lightsaber fight, but it was still really awesome.
It was
really cool.
Cinematically, it was very interesting. My biggest disappointment in that fight is that like Obi-Wan like disarms Grievous like that. I mean, it's like he just cuts off like all his hands, he loses all his lightsabers, and it's like, man, like General Grievous is a real bitch. Like how is this guy the guy that's in charge?
Yeah, that's true.
Like Grievous is just a total patsy. He's like the mafia boss, is like right hand guy. He's like, yeah, well the boss says to go to Mustafar, so you guys goes to Mustafar. and then Kenobi drops in, He's like, oh man, let's go, Kenobi, we'll handle this. And then he runs off like a bitch and gets killed. So it's like Grievous was such a letdown. I really wanted Grievous to be like the next big bad guy. Yeah, like I expected Dooku to be kind of like the irrelevant character, and I was buying into it because he dies at the beginning of episode 3. So I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be it. Like we got like the 4-armed like machine man who's gonna like wreck face on the Jedi. Like this guy right here is why all the Jedi get fucked. Nope.
No, it wasn't.
It's like, how does he have 4 lightsabers? Like, what 4 fucking
killed
Jedi
him.
did he kill?
He killed the lawman on the totem pole. That's
Right.
what he did.
He killed some Padawans. That's what he is. Like, oh man, like it was such a letdown as a character. If I had to say there's something disappointing about episode 3, it's that. It's Grievous being a letdown. But I wasn't really upset with like the rest of episode 3. I actually enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah,
I just
episode
rewatched
3 is
it.
really good. But you know what I mean when I'm saying like.
No, I'm with you. Yeah, because
there were fights like that really didn't need to be there. They were just kind of there.
Right. To draw a contrast here, because again, I read this, Weapon of the Jedi book. In the prequels, in the prequel era, you still have like talks about, because in Star Wars Rebels, they meet an enemy called the Inquisitor, who I don't know if you watched Rebels yet.
No, but I know of the Inquisitor.
Okay, so they meet a character called the Inquisitor, who in one of his duels with Kanan, he talks with Kanan and he criticizes Kanan's fighting style, and he goes, that's type 2, that's the Makashi style of lightsaber on lightsaber combat. So like the 7 fighting forms of the Jedi still exist in the prequel era. When the book Weapon of the Jedi, by this time, which is between episodes 4 and 5, is Luke, he goes and finds a Jedi temple and practices with some training droids. And the way he describes his fighting style is it all starts with a ready stance, which is where you raise your lightsaber on your right-hand side. So he was taught differently with Obi-Wan in his short time. He wasn't taught these 7 advanced forms. He was taught like the basics of there's a ready stance, and there's a deflection stance, and there's a defense stance, and there's an aggressive stance. And that's all he knows. And so I think like we see that as a big difference going from the prequels into the original trilogy and now into the sequel trilogy, I guess we'll call that. Um, so the very acrobatic Ataru style and Shien and Makashi and all that, that's all gone now. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'm picking up exactly what you're saying, is that the Jedi are at the height of their training. They had all the kinks ironed out. And they could take on the galaxy. And in a world where the galaxy has taken on the Jedi, it's completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it's just I think, people I think some fans are like claiming if they're going to make that comment like, "Oh, I didn't really like that fight because it wasn't like that flighty stuff I was used to or whatever." You can't give the prequels crap and say I didn't like the prequels, the originals were better and then criticize the fighting style that obviously heavily went back to what the original trilogy made the fighting style like, which was emotion, and that's what powered those
Right.
fights. It wasn't because it's the pinnacle of the Jedi. The fights were there for the emotion. The fight between Luke and Vader and The Empire Strikes Back is just it's passion, and every blow means something. There's something behind every blow, and I think that's what's important to remember about this fight in episode 7 is that I think we're going to see a return to that type of style,
Mm-hmm.
and that type of fight scene is we're going to see a return to the old way of doing it. But I am still very curious on what Kylo Ren's style of fighting is and what he knows, because he
Yeah.
was obviously very injured during his fight with Finn and Rey. So Finn and Rey in themselves kind of had a leg up because Kylo couldn't keep up with them physically because of things out of his control.
Yeah. Shot in the
Um,
gut by the gun of death.
yeah, right.
Like,
But I would be very interested to see, what Snoke's, because Snoke's is like, have him return. He needs to finish his training. Um, what type of style is he fighting with? Are they
right.
still going? Especially if we're thinking that this guy has been around for thousands of years, he's gotta know
Yeah.
if he's been around that long, he knows all the fighting styles. He has to know. So it's going to be interesting to see where they decide to take this, and if they're going to keep it with the whole, let's return it to what the original trilogy fights were, or if they're going to, by the end of episode 9 it's going to be back to being like
Yeah.
type fighting.
Well, that's one of the things that I liked. Is that because this is the kind of geek I am. Like, I watched Kylo Ren, and I was like, what kind of fighting style does he have? And he, numerous times when he's fighting Rey and Finn, he attacks with just his right hand holding his saber, and that is so Darth Vader because he
Yeah.
he he wants to mimic his grandfather so much, and so he attacks using just the one-handed attack style, like a modified Suresu form that
Yeah.
that Anakin used. So it's like I'm sitting here going, "Oh, it's Suresu," because it's very aggressive and it like turns. He tries to turn the enemy's defense. Like he basically has like this iron defense and tries to turn his enemy's offense against them.
Yeah. Do I have a question for you?
Sure.
If you know Kylo is supposed to be so trying to, be his grandfather, do you think that will in the end be his downfall, in the sense that he tries so hard to emulate his father, that or his grandfather, that will be his ultimate downfall?
Assuming he doesn't give in to the light side and he stays the bad guy through the entire thing, I think so because in my mind, Kylo Ren, for all his power, he's a pretender. He doesn't he doesn't want he's not like Anakin where he went to the dark side out of necessity, which was a twisting of good intentions into evil. He's just a selfish little prick, and he's just like, I want the power, blah. And I think that's just, and it's I don't know. He just seems like I said to me, he's a pretender. He can't even construct a lightsaber properly. Like the two little like side lightsaber beams that come out, those are like energy vents because he couldn't construct his saber correctly so that it coalesced into a proper beam. That's why it looks like erratic like it does and why it's sparking all the time. I think Kylo Ren.
Oh,
I feel like it's gonna. Yeah, I could absolutely see him trying to be like Vader too much, be his downfall.
here is a theory that I just thought of. We know he had something to do with the fall of Luke's Jedi Temple.
Mm-hmm.
Leia says in the movie, we lost, we lost our son. I should have never sent him away. That's when we lost him. Do you think there could have been, Kylo couldn't keep up with the training at the temple, and Luke was not per se scolding him, but Luke was like, "Look, maybe this is you don't have what you
Right.
think you want to have. Like you don't have what you don't have the same. You have the Force, but you don't. It's not strong, and it's not strong in the sense of it's not what you want to imagine it being."
Mm-hmm.
And Luke and Kylo butted heads over this, and Snoke swept in and said, Luke's blowing smoke up your ass. You're definitely a powerful, Jedi, and that's what led him to the dark side. Was
Right.
basically that Kylo was essentially told by Luke, you are never going to be as powerful as you want to be, and you need to accept that. And Kylo would never accept it.
I think if I'm shot in the dark guessing here, I like where you're going with this. I think Ben Solo is training under Luke, and he knows his lineage. He knows he's training under his uncle. He knows who his grandfather is, and he's like, okay. So he's kind of in the shadow of Luke Skywalker, who's like he's the savior of the galaxy. Like he brought down the Empire. He killed Darth Vader. He killed the Emperor. Ben's living in the shadow, and he wants to learn about his grandfather. And I guess I don't know how liberal Luke was in telling him about Vader, about who Anakin was, and then who he became as Vader. What I do know is that Leia hints at this in the movie. She's like, because Han says, we lost our son, and Leia says, no, Snoke took him from us. He was always watching us. And in the book, she goes into more detail, and it seems that Snoke had been around for a long time. Maybe Snoke had kind of like weaseled his way into the, I don't want to say, I guess, good graces of Luke, and was like,
Mm.
oh, I was a Jedi. Look at me. I'm scarred up. I was beat up in the Clone Wars, so I've been hiding all these decades. And it wasn't until the Empire was brought down that I decided to come out, and Luke, not having Yoda or Obi-Wan to go to, was like, sure, I'll buy that story. That makes sense. What if Snoke is with Luke the whole time and he's just sitting there just poisoning Ben's mind? Because Snoke does tell Kylo Ren in the novel, he says, of all of my pupils that I have ever trained, you have the greatest potential because you are of the light side and the dark side. No one I have ever taught can surpass you. Not to say that he can't be surpassed, Rey. No one that he's ever taught could surpass him.
Also brings in the theory of gray Jedi. Those
Yeah,
who don't, they've gray Jedi have always fascinated me because
by
they've
far
never
my favorite kind of Jedi.
they've they're not something anyone really talks about, and it's like I find them so interesting because they toy the line between light and dark, and they kind of never really, they're just there, and I wish we could go more in depth, and just it seems like the universe is not interested in it.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, because the thing is that with the movies, it's always been about that hard dichotomy of good versus
yeah.
evil.
But sometimes it's always just fun to throw in a little gray.
Sure, I'm
But
with you. I think the Grey
um
Jedi would be great.
yeah, I think it would be too. But no, like that's a really good theory because it would make sense, and it would give, it would give Snokes all that access because if Snokes was with Ben as a kid, he turns around, he keeps telling, Ben, every time he gets into an argument with Luke, he goes to Snokes and is like, "Oh my God, I can't do this. He's driving me nuts." And
Right.
Snokes is like, "Oh no, just you have great potential. You can do it." And then when finally Ben reaches his breaking point and is like, "Fuck this. I'm done. I can't do this anymore." Snokes is like, "Great. All right, destroy the temple. Meet me here."
Right.
This is going to help you start your way. I will help you reach the potential you believe you can be after I've built you up, because I don't know, I don't know if Snoke actually truly believes he has all this potential. Because I don't know, I'm not convinced
Right.
that he's a very strong Jedi. I'm not convinced at
I'm
all.
not either. I'm really not. I mean, yeah, it's like he has.
Which I'm okay with. It's fun to have somebody who's kind of average.
Yeah, you're talking about Kylo Ren being kind of average.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
I
think
agree.
Kylo Ren is that. I think Leia has it completely right that he's just being or Han had it completely right when he was telling Ben, like, he's just using you to for
Hmm.
an end, and he's gonna throw you away the minute he finds no more use for you. And
Right.
I think Han has it completely on point, because I think too Han understood what Ben was going through, because do you see how readily he was okay with ending his own son's life? He took that lightsaber, and I think Han knew. Ben just struggled with not being able to reach the potential that that may not have been put on him by others, but that he put on himself because of
Right.
his lineage.
Well, he did. He did. And here's one of the things. It's like, and this is one of those things in the artwork of The Force Awakens. They have artwork of a Forced Ghost Anakin Skywalker as Hayden Christensen, and then they have these mock-up drawings of him turning into Darth Vader as a Force Ghost and appearing before Kylo Ren. And Kylo Ren kind of hints to this in the movie. He's like, "Show me again, grandfather, the power of the dark side, and I will finish what you started." And in the book, it's kind of implied that he has these conversations with Vader, whether they're in his own head or whether it's not outright said that he does. But it's like, who's like, Kylo Ren's got more than Snoke leaning on him, whether it's his own demons or his own imaginations, his own ambitions, whatever it is. But he's got more weight than just what Snoke puts on him.
Oh yeah,
So,
definitely.
so I think that as a young boy, Ben learns about his grandfather, and Snoke is there saying, Anakin Skywalker was the greatest Jedi there ever was. He destroyed the Jedi, and he brought the Empire, and he spent 20 years destroying the Jedi, and nobody could ever stop him. It wasn't until your uncle. And so I think he poisons his mind and gets him going on these fantasies about Anakin becoming Vader.
Yeah, because one complaint I keep hearing about Kylo is that he's just a whiny little bitch, and it's like, I don't think he's a whiny little bitch. I think this was brought up in actually the Shifty Keys, like episode 98 or
I think I'm the
whatever
one
that
who,
was.
I'm the one who asked that question of who's the bigger bitch? Was it Anakin Skywalker or was it Kylo Ren?
Yeah, I think the one nice thing about Kylo Ren is, you may look at him and think like, oh yeah, he's just being a whiny little bitch, get over it, like emo Kylo Ren.
Right.
But I don't, now that we're getting really in depth, like, imagine being born into that though.
Oh yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
imagine being born into that family where you've got your mother is a well-known politician, one of the few survivors of the Alderaan system. Father was a general or a commander during the rebellion, well-known smuggler,
Hmm.
and then your uncle fucking took down the empire after 20 years of control, and then your grandfather went on this basically self-discovery journey of going to the dark side because he wanted to save the ones he loved, only in turn to help destroy the empire in the end, but achieved this power that no one can imagine. Like, and then there's you, and you're like the black sheep of the family, going like, I can kind of use I can use the force, but there's no way in hell I can't live up to these expectations that have been set. My last name is Solo. My uncle is a Skywalker. I can't achieve that. It's like being like the youngest of three kids, and going into, you all went through the same elementary school, and your two siblings are the smartest kids that your teachers have ever met, and you get a teacher, and you're not exactly, you're not a genius, but you're not stupid either, but that teacher just assumes you're supposed to be so great because of your siblings.
Right.
Like, he's not a bitch because he's not a whiny bitch because he wants to be a whiny bitch. He's a whiny bitch because I think he has all the right in the
Yeah, he's
world.
been stressing his whole life. Sure, he's had all these
He's
pressures on him.
he,
Absolutely.
and he wants to feel significant. And I mean, who doesn't want to feel significant? You
Right.
know, you want to feel
It's
like
even
you're doing
harder.
something.
Yeah, and it's absolutely even harder to feel significant when you're a young child who has potential but has no means of proving themselves, and you have these giants, like whether they're, this historical giants around you for good or evil deeds. It's like, where do I fit into that? And I kind of understand that a little bit because my my brother was like he was like the high school football jock, like he was one of the star players, and I was the geek, like
Yeah.
I couldn't get out from behind him to save my life. So I was always kind of in his shadow in high school. So I actually, after seeing the movie a few times, I actually understood why Kylo Ren would be upset, and why he would look to look to forge his own identity, leaning on the identity of his grandfather, because his grandfather was somebody who was born on Tatooine, who was a nobody. He was a slave of all things. He wasn't even a part of the Republic, and then he turned into the right hand man of the ruler of the Empire. You know, so
Yeah.
I'm again, after seeing it a few times, I absolutely can see why Kylo Ren is the way he is.
Yeah, and I think people just, I think people in general just need to stop giving him so much crap.
Right.
And Anakin and Kylo are very similar, but they're also very different in
Right.
their own
Their own.
respects.
Yeah, they've got
You know,
their uniquenesses about them. That's for
Anakin
sure.
went to the dark side because basically because he wanted to save the ones he loved, and he was completely manipulated, while Kylo just wants to feel significant in what he feels in a life that is extremely insignificant, and
Hmm.
that emotion is has been taken advantage of. I feel bad for the kid. Like I like after having this conversation, like I feel really bad for him. You
Yeah,
know?
I feel bad for Kylo as well. I mean, I feel bad for him in the same way I feel bad for Anakin, which was that you had so much potential to do so much good, and you allowed, I don't know if you want to call it pride or hubris, to blind you to that. I mean, Anakin Anakin couldn't step back and say, "Okay, I've had a vision that Padme is going to die during childbirth. What can I do to prevent that? Let me talk to my best friend. Let me talk to Obi-Wan." Instead, he goes for the short answer, which is he goes to Sidious. And Sidious, being the guy he is like, "Oh yeah, I can help you out, bro. I got you." It's
Yeah.
and probably Kylo Ren has a very similar journey where he's like, "I'm completely insignificant. How do I prove myself as being somebody more than who I am?" And Snoke sits there and says, "Well, your grandfather tried to bring order to the galaxy, and it was your uncle who fucked that all up." You know,
Yeah.
so they both get manipulated in their own way. I suspect
I
that. I
really
mean, this is my guess.
Yeah. No, I'm totally in agreement with you. But I did read, okay, like to go back to like the fan fiction world, I did read a really good fan fiction. It was a one shot. It was fucking long, but it was so good. And it was about how Anakin decide it was like an all AU where he decided to go to Obi-Wan instead of Sidious. And it was, oh, I wish I even remotely remembered what it was called. I know I found it on fanfiction.net. I just fucking no idea, but it was so good. It went into that exact scenario of Anakin, instead of using Sidious or Palpatine as his resource, he took Padme's advice and was like, okay, let's talk to Obi-Wan. And it's a very, very powerful story. It made me wish that that actually happened. I'll see if I can find it, and then if I can find it before this gets uploaded, I'll send it to you, Jim, and we can throw it in there. But I highly
Okay.
recommend it. I'm gonna go look for it now. Actually, I
Yeah, I
got
was
time.
I was trying to do like a quick like search for it, but I don't know.
Fan fiction. It auto corrected. It auto ended to fanfiction.net/game/Witcher. Have you any of you know what my obsession is? All right. Anyway, continue.
I guess as Captain Phasma is kind of a letdown, and I think what we see at the beginning of the movie of The Force Awakens with Finn is not very clear. It's like what happens in that scene. like the way it's described in the book is that Phasma sees in Finn the potential to be the greatest stormtrooper, to be the one who would replace her one day, and to lead the stormtrooper legions. And so she can't fathom that Finn wouldn't shoot the villagers. So that's why she has him turn in his weapon when they get back to the Star Destroyer.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like, and that's none of that's like explained in the movie. It's like, man, like that would make the dynamic of Phasma and Finn so much different. Because at the end, Phasma just kind of gives up. She's like, whatever. I'll turn the shield off. That's fine. But if you had known that Finn was this person that was very important to her, and she had a moral struggle with it, and so that's why she gave in, that makes her character much more interesting, and it doesn't make her seem like so much of a cop-out. So...
Yeah, that actually does make her a lot more interesting. Because I'm kind of with you. I was a little disappointed with Phasma, but I'm also I'm also the same camp of like I'm willing to wait for the second movie. Assumptions about all these characters.
I want her to be amazing, like in the second movie. Like I really want, because Gwendolyn Christie is such a fantastic actress. I mean, especially in Game of Thrones, and it's like, what? Like what happened in The Force Awakens? Like she doesn't even shoot anybody. She just walks around with her silver shotgun. I mean, it's like, come on, guys. Like what? I don't know.
The fact that sword swinging guy who yells "traitor" has become more popular than her character has is kind of depressing.
This is one thing super simple they could have done in the movie. Would have made everything better. Instead of that guy being there, have Phasma be there.
Oh yeah, that's
like if it had been Phasma who had fought Finn, everything's different. She could still get shot at the end, but not die. And the thing is, like, they could have added that in there because there's like promotional shots of Phasma on that scene, like that set where like the Maz Kanata's castle's destroyed and there's smoke in the background and stuff. Like they did like promo shots of her there with like at that scene. So it's like she could have been there easily.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I'm with you. I was really disappointed with Phasma's portrayal in the film, especially with kind of how hyped up she was.
Mm-hmm.
But I am willing to wait.
Yep, I agree. I am too.
What happens in episode 8? I'm because I know this is I know you're gonna get 3 films, and that's one argument I've been having with I've had with Alex is like he's like I was so disappointed in this character, and I'm like, well, I'm actually willing to wait till episode 8 to see what happens and, more character development. And he's more like, no, they all should have been established right then and there and all done. And I think there was some general establishment, but like I said, I'm willing to kind of like sit back and be like, okay, let's see where this is going to go, where they're going to take them. And then I'll make my final decisions from there. So,
yeah, I agree. I think that I want to know about Snoke is really what I want to know about. Like, come episode 8, I think it's my burning question is Snoke. I feel like I'm in the Kenobi camp with Rey. I feel pretty confident in that right now. But Snoke is the burning question. Who is our big bad guy? Who's the big bad? Tell me. That's what I really want to know.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah. One more thing I wanted to bring up, and that I probably forgot. Oh, you do know that Poe was originally supposed to die, right?
No, I didn't know that. That's news.
So, because a lot, he seems like a very insignificant character, but I also do love Tim and Finn together. I was just like, can you make a movie with those two together and just like nothing else for 90 minutes? I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, they get along really well. Their characters really click. I can't see killing off Poe. Like that doesn't make sense. Like especially the way like John Boyega, that's Finn. The way Finn and Poe's characters get along, especially at the beginning of the movie. I can't see.
So apparently in the original script, so I'm just gonna throw this out there. In the original script, they all had him die. And his death was actually when the TIE fighter crashed into Jakku. That's where he didn't survive, and he passed away, and no one ever saw him again. Huh. But when J.J. Abrams met Oscar Isaacs, I believe is his name, Oscar who Isaac. Plays him. He liked him so much that he was like, you know what? I'm not going to kill him. Like I don't feel any reason to kill Poe off. So that's why he kind of like disappears for this like extended length of time in the film. And then he kind of
Yeah.
just like pops up again at the base. Or not at the base, but at that on that planet where they fight and where Rey's
Yeah.
taken. So
Yeah.
that's why he kind of seems to make this like very weird comeback. But yeah, Poe was originally supposed to die.
Right. Well,
There you
I can
go.
see. I think Rey, Poe, and Finn become like the new holy trinity of Star Wars.
Yeah, I think the thing is I think they've been trying to push that, but because his
Rey and
really,
Poe never meet in the movie. Just
yeah, they never
that's,
meet, but they've been pushing it, but really with the amount of screen time that Poe got, like the amount of limited screen time, like no screen time he got with Rey, I think makes it very hard for them to push that as the Holy Trinity unless, next episode they decide, they get a whole ton more screen time together and we
yeah.
get to see all three of them
Well, they
actually working
do.
together.
Yeah, they do meet in the book, and there's kind of a like a moment. Let's
Also
see.
too, I'd be super happy while you're pulling up the article. I'd be really happy if like Finn and Poe got together. Like that was the
Oh my
romance
god.
for this for the trilogy. It wasn't like a
It's a
Han Leia.
bromance.
It's no, like it's they just decide that they're gonna get together and it's a homosexual relationship. I'd be cool with that. I'd watch that. I'd be like, yeah, I could. Yeah, this I can be happy with. Yee.
I tiptoe around that a little bit because it's just like I really don't want Star Wars to like get caught up in like the modern like narrative
Oh no,
of like
I'm not.
American politics where we gotta like make like certain characters gay or not.
I'm honestly not saying that because like I believe in that like political correctness and pushing that in every film. I'm saying that because I think it would be great. I think they would be amazing together. Keep my jacket. It looks good on you. Oh, come on. You don't think there is nothing going on between the two of them?
I guess my thing is that it's like I don't. And reading the book, that's in no way like nothing comes across that way. There's this one scene I just pulled it up. It's like where it says, "Did Ray and Poe ever meet?" And in the book they do. And I'm just gonna like it's like three sections. So I'm just gonna read you the middle section where it says, "She nodded slowly, searching his face and finding that she liked it." And that's what like those her thoughts on Ray meeting Poe. Um,
That's it.
well, oh, she says he says because he tells her I'm Poe, and she says, "Oh, I recognize the name. So you're Poe. You're Poe Dameron, the X-wing pilot. I'm Ray." Like it doesn't like get into like this like this story is not like a really like a romance story, you know.
Yeah.
Like I mean, the most that we see in the film is Ray hugging Finn when she learns that it was Finn's idea to rescue her, and Finn telling her at some point, when he's confessing that he was a stormtrooper, and he's like, "I'm never going back to that life," and it's because you looked at me like no one ever has. None of that is like, "Oh, I'm in love with you." It's none of that gushy stuff that we had. None of the gooey stuff that we had in episode 2.
Yeah.
um,
Well, and I'm not like saying that I want there to be a romance. I think this is just also to my old days. Well, not really totally old days, but my old days of fan fiction writing, where you're kind of just like anything is
right.
possible as
You're
long
just
as you
playing
can
around with
write
the
it pretty
characters in
well.
your head. I'm with you.
Yeah, and it's just like it's like I'm not gonna be like super disappointed and super PO'd if like they don't get together. It's not like I'm gonna be like, that's it, Star Wars completely ruined for me. It's just more like, those fun fangirl things, you sort of fanboy things you like to do where you like sit
Hmm.
up at night and you're like, ah, they'd be so cute together. You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna see if there is some Poe Finn fan fiction out there. We're doing this, people.
You know what? I would like. I'm thinking like.
Here, I'm looking. Pulling up the website.
I'm thinking that
Filters.
I'm thinking that I'm thinking that Kylo Ren and General Hux secretly are lovers. That's what I think.
Kylo Ren and oh wait, which one's General Rux?
The
The
General Hux is the redheaded dude who gives
oh
the very empowering speech.
ah! Just
It's
like
like
that.
secretly they're madly in love. They just fight in public.
I would be okay with that one too, actually. Where's Poe? Don't tell me Poe's not in this. Poe. Okay, I found it. All right. Rated all Published date. Where's my complete
Ever.
part? Status complete. I'll just look for the complete. 61 stories.
You got some
That
reading to
one's
do.
in. That's. Oh, here's one. Fluffy one shot about Poe Dameron and Finn. Finn's been out cold for 2 months since Kylo Ren's attack on him. Poe isn't doing very well about it and has spiraled into a depression. Poe, who has been battling his thoughts on his sexuality since he was 13, figures out why he feels this way. Will Finn ever wake up?
So
it got really in depth.
I was about to say, like, my only issue with that is that, like, it pulls, like, the sexuality card out of nowhere. It's like, we don't know anything about Poe's character, so it's
fuck?
like...
Listen to this one. Rey announces to her bandmates that she got accepted into MIT. They congratulate...
the fuck?
They congratulate her in their own ways, of course. Pairings: Rey, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, Poe Dameron, Finn.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, I'm gonna find one more.
This is fun.
I'm gonna find another description. Everyone wants a piece of Poe Dameron. That one's just honest. Let's see here. What? The Force tells Rey who she should choose as her boyfriend? What the fuck? Ooh, this one actually. Okay. The homo is strong with these ones.
Oh,
Nothing
God.
past Luke and Skywalker, not even secret crushes.
Oh my god. The real reason why Kylo Ren goes to the dark side. Uncle Luke doesn't like his boyfriend.
Oh my god. Poe shakes his head. Nothing, just tired of getting flirted with. Plus, you seem nervous. Look, if you like Rey, you should tell her, and tell her soon. She's about to be in very high demand. Finn's mouth popped open. It's not like that at all, he stutters, trying to figure out where the hell that came from. And then, what else here? Is there one of... Oh, and then it's like the typical, like, oh, I totally figured out you two were in love with one another. Geez, finally, and then they kiss. No, they didn't kiss. Oh, no. Listen to how this one ends. Oh, not again, Poe says with a heavy sigh, even though he's wearing a smile bright enough. Oh my god. I
can't even read it.
Hold on. Oh no, not again, Poe says with a smile, even though he's wearing... Oh, hold on. Oh.
One more time.
Cut. Oh, not again, Poe says with a sigh, even though he's wearing a smile bright enough to light up Darth Vader's heart.
Wow.
As soon as
I think I'm done.
As soon as Luke spots them, he leans over to Rey. See, I told you the homo is strong with those ones.
Jesus Christ. That's it. I'm done.
Okay, you know, if I could find like a really good Poe Finn fic, I will send it to everyone.
Oh my god.
But so far, they're all really shitty.
I'm okay, like, finding a really shitty, like, Star Wars fanfic and then doing a Shifty reads on it.
I was gonna say, like, can we do a Shifty reads on a, like, just pick a random, like, 2 characters and find, like, a fluff fic and do a Shifty reads on it?
Right?
I think it would be so good. I would cry. Just a little storm pilot travel where Finn decides Pose needs a jacket too.
Oh my god.
I want to read this one about bandmates. I'm going to read that one. Open. Alright.
Alright. I think we've gone down the rabbit hole far enough.
No, let's keep going.
No, it's almost midnight for me. I have to get to bed.
Jim, come along with me to the rabbit hole.
No. Do not want this pill. Which one was the pill that Neo could use to get the fuck out of the Matrix?
I don't know, because I haven't seen the Matrix. I just know it's the red or the blue pill.
Yeah, whichever one does not take me with the Mad Alice here.
You're welcome.
Vic is like the Mad Hatter and Alice in Wonderland all rolled into one.
Oh, dude, I'm a lot of things is all rolled into one.
There's no lie there.
Sparks keeps saying she wants to be on a podcast with me.
Y'all would have a riot.
I was like, I was thinking about it the other day, actually. I was like, damn it, I need to be on a podcast with her, but fuck, school's starting again. You're never
All
gonna see
right,
me.
so our next private cast will be Sparks and Vic.
And there's no talking for the first 10 minutes. We're just like, we don't know what to say to each other. Silence.
Y'all can just start with fanfic and go from there. And see
Hey,
see
Sparks.
what goes wrong.
Sparks, what's your favorite type of fanfiction?
Probably My Immortal.
Best Harry Potter fanfiction ever.
I think it was ranked. I just saw a thing on Facebook that it was ranked as like the number 2 best Harry Potter fanfiction.
And it's not considered the best because it's good either.
No, yeah.
All right, I should probably let you go to bed. You're definitely right. We've gone down the rabbit hole.
Right,
enough.
yeah. So, had a lot of good conversation. I've enjoyed this so much. This has been fantastic.
This is great. This is actually
yeah.
really nice. We should definitely think about continuing this, doing more like one-on-one sessions with people.
For sure, absolutely. I could see Tyler and I going like, we've done it before. We have gone down some deep like rabbit holes with anime, and like on Skype chats. So I would love to do one with Tyler.
We should definitely send us our suggestions and cast lists you want to hear, and we'll see what we can do.
That's gonna be a new category on the Shifty Keys. As soon as I clear it with the other admins, because they have no idea we're doing this.
Yeah, we haven't told
so
anyone.
we kind of just shotgunned this via text message and was like, "Hey, let's do this."
Because I haven't talked Star Wars with Jim in so long.
Vic and I haven't really talked since RTX. So this has been a good old time between us.
I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing this up. I appreciate the idea. I'm glad we could finally get it working.
Thank you for like playing along with me and sacrificing an afternoon.
That's all right.
So
I couldn't focus anyway.
Screw school. All right,
that's
kids.
What I thought today.
Star Wars will be around forever. School's only passing.
That's true. Don't go all like fizzle.
What?
You know what? Just end it. We're done.
Bye, Felicia. We'll see y'all around.
Bye.
Okay. Here we go.
Oh my god! Why are we recording?
Because we're special.
We're special. We didn't tell anybody
rebels.
else about
Nope,
this.
sure didn't. I'm gonna discreetly go to Tyler and be like, "Hey, I need the intro music and such."
Can you get me that intro music stuff?
Hey, hook me up with the intro DL. Right? You man.
Right.
I got you, bro. I got you. It's like
oh my god.
illicit deals over here.